So once I finish now the electrochemistry topic, we will go to the next topic, which is thermodynamics. Next topic is thermodynamics. In your school, you have studied the topic heat, right? So thermodynamics is mainly related with heat, but we are not only studying about heat in thermodynamics. Thermodynamics involves the study of relationship between heat and other forms of energy, not only heat. How heat is related with other forms of energy, that we will be studying in thermodynamics. We will start with an example here. In a vessel, we have taken water, right? And we are heating it with the help of a heating mantle. If you see this example, we are not directly heating the water, right? We are not directly heating the water, rather we are heating the vessel. We are heating the vessel. Once the vessel gets heated, the heat will be transferred to the water, then water will get heated. So what happens here? Flow of heat happened. Flow of heat. And in thermodynamics, we will be studying mainly about flow of heat. And it's a big chapter in your plus one. And in your plus one, you will be studying in detail about the thermodynamics. Now a question. In your plus one, you will be studying about different laws of thermodynamics, such as zeroth law, first law, second law. I am not going to discuss all these things. That you will be studying in your school, right? Once you join your plus one or plus two, then you will study like how you can explain this law to explain the properties of heat. My objective here to introduce that some of the questions that you have in your mind, whether those questions can be answered with the help of thermodynamics. These are the questions. Why heat flows from hot to cold bodies? Question. Right? Always heat will move from hot to cold bodies. Why not reverse? Why the air becomes thinner and colder at higher altitude? For example, if you are climbing to a mountain, you will feel that some kind of suffocation because there is not much air on the top of the mountain. So there, air is thin. And you can feel the chill, right? When you go there, it's quite cold there. What is the reason? Why the air got thinner and colder at higher altitudes? Why the sun appears yellow? Sun and stars, all are stars, right? They should have the same color. But why the sun appears yellow? Where the stars appear either as red of colder star or sometimes bluish white colored stars. Why stars are having different color? All are stars. Whether we will be able to answer these questions with the help of thermodynamics. You studied one point in your school that the lowest temperature we can achieve is minus 273 degrees Celsius, or we call this as 0 Kelvin. Why can't we reduce below that? What is the problem? Why we are telling that to minus 273 degrees Celsius only we can cool an object? Why we cannot cool below that? Can we answer this question with the help of thermodynamics? So unlike atomic structure or electrochemistry, where your questions related to those topics will be very less, but not in thermodynamics. Thermodynamics, so many questions. How a thermometer works, especially now in this pandemic situation. Every time if you are feeling that little bit fever, then immediately we will check the temperature and check that whether we don't have fever or not, whether we have fever or not. Why that? How that thermometer works, right? Can we explain the working principle of a thermometer with the help of thermodynamics? We will take another example, air conditioner. How that air conditioner works, right? How it cools our room to a great extent. How a diesel engine works. How a diesel engine works. How our body is getting heated, and because of that heat, the functions of our body is being done or is happening. We require, that our body should maintain a 37 degrees Celsius temperature, internal temperature. Then only our body parts will work effectively. Well, how that 37 degrees Celsius is maintained, right? Can we explain these phenomena using thermodynamics? All these things you are going to study. So mainly in thermodynamics in your school, you will be studying mainly about the heat of flow. That flow of heat, not heat of flow, flow of heat. How the heat is moving or flowing from one place to other place. Those things you will be studying. To I will answer one question among these questions, what is how a thermometer works. All of you have seen different types of thermometer. Mercury-based thermometer you might have seen in your school also. Teacher might have shown you, one thermometer. A thermometer works on the principle that solids and liquids expands on heating. If your thermometer is made up of mercury-based liquid or mercury liquid, then the working principle is solids and liquids expands on heating. As the temperature rises, the mercury in the thermometer expands. So if you have a thermometer like this, there will be a mercury drop inside the thermometer, and that thermometer will be put it in our mouth. So what happens? The liquid, which is mercury, will get heat from our body. If it gets heat from our body, it will expand. It will expand like this. How much it expands will give you what is the temperature of your body. So the working principle of the mercury-based thermometer is, as the temperature rises, the mercury in the thermometer expands, and the extent of expansion will tell you what is the body temperature. But nowadays, there are different types of thermometer. For example, digital thermometer, where there will not be any mark like 10 degree, 20 degree, 30 degree. Those marks will not be there. Directly, your fever or your body temperature will be shown directly. If you carefully look at those kind of thermometer, we cannot see mercury. Then how that thermometer works? The digital thermometer mainly works because it contains a heat sensor. Instead of mercury, there is a heat sensor. And some of the thermometer now doctors are using that they won't even touch it. Thermometer will not even touch. Thermometer, like it looks like a gun, and doctor will point that gun into your ear. Then the temperature of your body will be displayed on the thermometer without touching. The thermometer will not touch your body. Those kind of thermometer, how it works? It works on the basis of infrared ray concept. That also you will study in your thermodynamics portion. So digitally, your thermometer measures the temperature inside our ear canal through infrared ray technology. So you don't have to keep that thermometer in your mouth, not required, not even to touch. This is actually very, very important in this present pandemic situation, right? COVID situation. We don't have to, put the thermometer previously, who put that thermometer in our mouth, even though it is sterilized, right? So we don't want to touch, or we don't want to, put those thermometers inside our mouth. No need to touch at all. Just to put a gun on your forehead or your ear canal, then directly we will be able to measure the body temperature. How these things will be done, you will be studying that in your thermodynamics. So my takeaway point, like you can take one point from this topic, that in your +1, you will be mainly studying about how heat flows. And by studying that flow of heat, you will be understanding why these things happen, how air conditioner works, how a diesel engine works, right? Why heat flows from hot to cold bodies. Those things you will be studying in your thermodynamics class. Next topic is chemical equilibrium. You also studied about chemical equilibrium in your 10th standard, and some of the points you might have missed to understand the core of this subject. We'll start with the chemical equilibrium. We will take an example. Hydrogen reacts with iodine, form hydrogen iodide. See this reaction. This is a reversible reaction. What do you mean by reversible reaction? In reversible reaction, forward reaction and backward reaction will happen. Here, forward reaction is hydrogen reacts with iodine and forming hydrogen iodide. That is forward reaction. Backward reaction is the formed hydrogen iodide will be decomposed into hydrogen and iodine. That will be backward reaction. So this is backward reaction and this is forward reaction, right? When we start the reaction, we are going to start the reaction. We have not started the reaction yet. We are going to start the reaction. We are going to mix hydrogen and iodine. When we start our reaction, initially the rate of forward reaction, the speed of the forward reaction, you have studied this, it will be very high. Why? Before starting the reaction, we had good amount of hydrogen and iodine, which are reactants. Because of the higher concentration of the reactants, more forward reaction will happen and more hydrogen iodide will be formed. But at the start, there is no product, right? It is going to start. Still, hydrogen iodide is not produced yet, but we have good amount of the reactants. So initially, forward reaction rate will be very high. So whenever we start a reversible reaction, forward reaction will be very high because of the high concentration of the reactants and there is no product formed. But during the course of the reaction, what happens? More and more hydrogen iodide will be produced. If more and more hydrogen iodide produced means the concentration of hydrogen and iodine became less. So what happens? Now the backward reaction, because more and more hydrogen iodide is formed means more and more hydrogen iodide will be decomposed. So backward reaction rate will increase. At the same time, because of there is a decrease in the reactants concentration, forward reaction rates will decrease. So you can see the graph now. Hydrogen and iodine to form hydrogen iodide, which is a forward reaction, its rate of reaction is decreasing. At the same time, the backward reaction, that is hydrogen iodide decomposed into hydrogen and iodine, backward reaction rate is increasing. This is the characteristics of any reversible reaction. Any reversible reaction you take, initially forward reaction will be high. And when we continue with that experiment, slowly forward reactions rate will decrease due to the reduction in the concentration of the reactants. At the same time, initially, the backward reaction rate will be slow because there was no product at that time. But on the course of time, more and more product will be formed. Those product will be decomposed. So what happens? More and more backward reaction will happen or reverse reaction will happen. And the backward reaction or reverse reaction, its rate will increase. Fine. But there is a problem. There will be a problem occurs at a particular time. At this time, what happens? The rate of forward reaction and the rate of backward reaction will become equal. And we call that state as equilibrium. Once it reaches equilibrium, then you can see the rate of forward and that rate of backward reactions, when they are equal, not only they are equal, they are not even changing. See the graph, it's a straight line now. Rate of forward reaction and rate of backward reaction, they become equal and they are not changing, right? There is no change in the rates of both forward and backward reaction after a particular time. What do you mean by there is no change in the rate? That means there is no change in the concentration of reactants and products after the equilibrium. After reaching equilibrium, there is no change in the concentration of reactants and there is no change in the concentration of product. Now a problem comes, right? What does it mean? There is no reaction happening, because if reaction happens, we will get product. But once it reaches equilibrium, we cannot see further production of the products. So we may think that the reaction stopped and we may think that the reaction is static now, but that's not the case. Both forward and backward reaction happens even after equilibrium. After equilibrium also reaction happens, but the problem is during the forward reaction, how much hydrogen iodide is formed after the equilibrium, how much it is formed, the same amount of hydrogen iodide will be decomposed back. Imagine after equilibrium, 5 grams of hydrogen iodide is being made. The same 5 grams of hydrogen iodide will be decomposed. So what happens? We may think that there is no further production of hydrogen iodide. Actually, production happened, 5 grams formed. But whatever hydrogen iodide is formed after that, it is now decomposed into hydrogen and iodine. Right? We can say now that reaction, the equilibrium is not static, it is dynamic. Reaction is happening, but we are not getting product. If reaction is happening and we are not getting the product, then whether it gives any kind of use to us, our job is to get the product. Once it reaches equilibrium, I told you that there will not be further production of the products. We are not getting hydrogenated after reaching equilibrium. And then why we have to conduct the experiment? Right? We don't have to conduct the experiment because reaction looks like stopped. Then if you continue for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, if this reaction, if you are allowing it to continue for 5 years also, you are not going to get hydrogenated. How we will tackle this issue? How to solve this issue? Who is the reason behind why the system reaches equilibrium? So we know that equilibrium, equilibrium is the villain. Chemical equilibrium is the villain. Because once the system reaches equilibrium, then onwards we are not getting the products. So we know the reason, equilibrium is the villain. We have to defeat it. How? If this concept is, if you can understand this concept, like how to defeat the chemical equilibrium, then we can study this chapter, chemical equilibrium, in an efficient way. So I will teach you how to defeat a chemical equilibrium and makes the reaction to proceed in more in forward reaction and to get more products. We will study that. I'm taking an example, very famous example. Nitrogen reacts with hydrogen and forms ammonia. Our job is to produce more and more ammonia. Our job is to produce more and more ammonia. We started the reaction. We started getting ammonia. But after some time, the reaction reached equilibrium. Once the reaction reached equilibrium, then further ammonia will not be formed. Further production of ammonia is stopped. Now, if you are continuing this experiment for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, doesn't matter. I'm not going to get ammonia again. Who is the villain? Because it reached chemical equilibrium. So I have to defeat him. How to defeat? I have to destroy the equilibrium. I have to destroy the equilibrium. How to defeat the equilibrium or how to destroy the equilibrium? You have studied in your school. Either you can change the temperature, or you can change the pressure, or you can change the concentration. By changing these parameters, I will be able to destroy the chemical equilibrium. But there is a problem. If we try to destroy the equilibrium, then the system will repair itself to come back to equilibrium. So if I try to destroy the equilibrium, then system will repair itself and will come back to again chemical equilibrium. So now we have two issues. One issue, equilibrium reached. Second issue, if you want to destroy the equilibrium, then the system will repair itself. And again, it will come back to equilibrium. Once it come back to equilibrium, then we are not going to get further products. How to tackle this, that I'm going to discuss. We can actually tackle this very easily because we have brain and chemical systems, they do not have brain. How we will tackle? For example, during this reaction, ammonia is being made, right? Ammonia is being made. What I will do, this ammonia is a gas which can be converted into liquid by applying pressure. So what I will do, I will apply pressure and make this ammonia as liquid. Once it converted into liquid, I will take it away from the reaction system or reaction medium. I will remove it. How I will remove? When ammonia is formed, I will apply pressure. When we apply pressure, ammonia gas will be converted into ammonia liquid. That ammonia liquid, I can remove it from the system. Once I remove ammonia from the system, what does it mean? I changed the concentration. I reduced the concentration. If I reduced the concentration, chemical equilibrium will break. Because one of the way to destroy chemical equilibrium is to change the concentration. I change the concentration now. The system loses its chemical equilibrium destroyed. But what the system does, what the reaction system does, it will think my chemical equilibrium destroyed. I want to get back to chemical equilibrium. I have to repair myself. It will think, why my equilibrium is broken? Why it got broken? So it will think, because ammonia concentration reduced, that's why I lost my chemical equilibrium. So if I get the ammonia back, or if I'm producing more ammonia, then I can reach back to chemical equilibrium. So what the system does, because ammonia concentration decreased, that's the reason it loses its chemical equilibrium. So if it wants to get its equilibrium back, it has to produce more and more ammonia. More and more ammonia means forward reaction will be faster. Because of the disturbance we created on the system, forced the system to act like this, to give or to conduct forward reaction at a faster rate and produce more and more ammonia. Right? Now what we should do, whenever ammonia is being formed, we have to apply, remove. We will remove. Again, equilibrium will lose. Again, system will think, why my equilibrium lost? Because I reduced my ammonia concentration. So make more ammonia, make more ammonia. Whenever it makes more ammonia to come back to chemical equilibrium, during that time, we will be keep on removing that ammonia from the system. Now you see, the system tried to come back to chemical equilibrium, and we utilized that action. We actually played with the system, its ability to come back to chemical equilibrium, and we made a situation that it will help us. It will help us. So every time, whenever you are doing a reaction, whenever any reaction, and imagine that your reaction stopped because of it reached equilibrium. What you should do, you remove that product from the system. Once you remove the product from the system, then the system will try to make more and more products to reach back to the equilibrium. Again, you remove the product. So by removing the product, we will be able to get more and more product by cheating, right? We played with the system and we cheated the system, and the system gives us more and more ammonia. First thing, effect of concentration. If you studied this concept, then you will be able to solve most of the questions which will be coming in your chemical equilibrium chapter. Because chemical equilibrium chapter, one reaction you will get, and you have to tell in which way we can increase the forward reaction. One example you study, this you can apply in all examples. Only one example you study, this you can apply in other examples. Another way, not only this way, there are different ways that we can increase the production. Again, I'm taking this example, nitrogen reacts with the hydrogen and forms ammonia. After some time, the system will reach equilibrium. Once it reaches equilibrium, then we will not be able to get more ammonia. So what we should do? We have to think. We'll think. For that, we'll see how many, this reaction, if you see, the equation of this reaction, if you see, we can say that 1 mole of nitrogen, right? 1 mole of nitrogen reacts with 3 moles of hydrogen, forms 2 moles of ammonia. So total 4 moles of reactants and 2 moles of ammonia. Left hand side and right hand side, the volume of the reactants and products are different. Here 4 moles are there. For 4 moles, more volume is required. Right hand side, only 2 moles. 2 moles means less volume is required. So left hand side or the reactant side, volume is high. Right hand side, volume low. This difference in the volume we can actually utilize. How? I'm going to apply pressure. And I will check. If I apply pressure, higher pressure means I'm applying 200 atmosphere, very high pressure I'm applying. Whether anything will happen here, I will explain that. When I will apply pressure, you have studied about one rule that is known as Boyle's law. Boyle's law states that pressure is inversely proportional to the volume. That means If you increase the pressure, volume will decrease. Or if you decrease the pressure, volume will increase. That is Boyle's law. Whether we can use Boyle's law to generate more ammonia. Let's see. We are going to apply very high pressure. So I'm increasing the pressure. Increasing the pressure means what will happen to the volume? Volume will decrease. By increasing the pressure, volume will decrease. Now you see this equation where volume is decreasing for forward reaction or backward reaction. You can see that forward reaction, volume is decreasing. So what does it mean? If I apply pressure into the system, as per Boyle's law, by increasing the pressure, volume will decrease. Here, volume is decreasing for the forward reaction. So forward reaction will happen at a faster rate. Forward reaction, if it happens at a faster rate, I'm going to get more and more ammonia. I'm going to get more and more ammonia. That's why if you want to conduct an experiment for producing ammonia from nitrogen and hydrogen, and that process is known as Haber process. All of you studied that Haber process. This Haber process, why we carried out in 200 atmosphere, sometime even 1000 atmosphere pressure they will use. Now we know the reason. It's not like we are simply giving some higher amount of pressure to carry out a reaction. No, there is a reason behind it. If you are not applying this pressure, then what happens? After some time, it will reach equilibrium. Once it reaches equilibrium, we are not going to get ammonia. We need ammonia, right? We need ammonia for making fertilizers. And fertilizers are actually required for cultivation or agriculture. Without ammonia, ammonia-based fertilizers will not be there. If that is not there, then our cultivation won't be working in a good way and we are not going to get food, right? So for getting food, we require ammonia, huge amount of ammonia. So if you are not applying pressure, then what will happen? After some time, it will reach equilibrium. Once it reaches equilibrium, then it is not going to change its concentration. More and more ammonia will not be formed. Then there is no point in conducting the experiment, right? But by applying pressure, as per the Boyle's law, volume will decrease. Which reaction leads to a decrease in volume? Forward reaction, because forward reaction 4 to 2. 4 to 2, volume is decreasing, right? And decrease in volume, which is forward reaction will happen at a faster rate, and we are going to get more and more and more ammonia, right? I will take another example and we'll check whether it will be true for all types of reaction. We will take our old example. Hydrogen plus iodine gives hydrogen iodide, a balanced equation, right? Here, how many moles? 1 mole, 1 mole, 2 moles. So total 1 plus 1, 2 moles here. Here also 2 moles. Is there any change in the number of moles? No change in the number of moles. So volume will be same. Volume will be same. Same volume in both the cases. Now, if I apply pressure, anything will happen? If I apply pressure, as per Boyle's law, the reaction where volume is decreasing, that will happen because there is no reaction here which is giving a reduction in volume or increase in volume. Here volume is same. So for this reaction, if I apply high pressure, whether it will increase the rate of reaction? No. That's why for this reaction, we apply only atmospheric pressure. We don't give any high pressure for conducting this experiment. Hydrogen and iodine, to form hydrogen iodide, you can conduct it in a jar. We don't have to apply any pressure. It will simply react with hydrogen and iodine and form hydrogen iodide very easily. We don't have to apply any pressure. Because if we apply pressure also, nothing will happen. Because if we increase the pressure, volume, the reaction with the volume reduction is happening, that should happen, but there is no reaction where there is any volume reduction, right? Both the case, volume is same because the number of moles associated with the reactants and the products, they are same. Now we know why some reactions we are giving high pressure, in some reactions why we are not giving high pressure. Now you got the point, right? Similarly, by changing the temperature also, we will be able to get more products. We will be able to get more products by changing the temperature as well. So now by these two examples, you got an idea that why the reversible reactions require specific conditions to make more products. So in your +1 and +2, in your +1, you'll be studying about chemical equilibrium. And during that time, the questions will be asked. You will be giving one reaction. And in that reaction, the question will be like this. Can you increase the rate of forward reaction? Can you decrease the rate of forward reaction? What we should do? Those kind of questions you may get. Now you will be able to answer that. You will be able to answer how we can increase the rate of forward reaction and getting more products. And that will be useful for the industries also. Now, why the industries are using high pressure, low temperature or high temperature, or why they are removing the products from the system, we could explain with the help of the concept related to chemical equilibrium, right? And in +1, you are going to study a very, very big chapter. Chemical equilibrium is